It's Tuesday, January 17th, 2017.
Today, in local news, we're going to talk about the new carbon tax in Alberta and how much it will screw you over. Or not, I don't know.
In national news, we're going to be looking at electoral reform, how the current government totally botched up the discussion on it, as well as all the different systems that we have as possibilities.
And in international news, we're not going to talk about Donald Trump, but we are going to talk about something equally depressing, the Philippine Drug War. I'm Bandringer.
And I'm the Dino Man.
And this is the Broke Canadian Newscast.
They're two guys with more time than money to spare, discussing local to world affairs. There's Bandringer first with the Dino Man last. Here's the Broke Canadian Newscast.
Before we start, I thought I'd just want to give a quick primer on what this thing that we're making is going to look like. This is our first episode, so we're just kind of figuring it out. But we're going to do 4 15-minute segments.
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take. We'll go higher or lower depending on how interested you are and how much stuff we have to talk about. We'll talk about local news. For us, that'll be Edmonton and Alberta in general.
Hey, I might throw in a Perry Sound tidbit there.
I'm sure you will, and it will be very interesting. It won't. Guys, it won't.
Hey, there was a bear that kind of stopped a whole bunch of people from getting power because they couldn't get the vehicles in to repair the power line after a drunk guy crashed through it.
Okay. You have a more interesting hometown than mine. We're going to talk about national news. We'll talk about Canadian politics, Canadian news, and then we'll talk about international news. A lot of the time that will have to do with the States because we are, as they say, sleeping with the elephant. Do you know that phrase?
Oh, I've heard it, yeah.
Yeah. For people that don't know, there's a well-known Canadian political saying that says, living in Canada is like sleeping with an elephant. Even if the elephant means you no harm, you will feel every toss and turn.
That's the truth.
That is definitely the truth. But, yeah, so that's a little bit about what this thing is and what we're going to do. We're going to go fairly in-depth on one story. We're not going to do 5 or 6 stories in little chunks. We're going to go really in-depth on specific stories. That means we won't get to everything. But the stories we get into, we're going to go deep. We're going to give you all the facts first, and then we're going to give you some of our opinions, talk about some analysis, and just kind of give a good account of what's happening in the world.
Yeah. And then, as you forgot to mention, we finish it all off with news nobody cares about.
News that doesn't matter.
News that doesn't matter.
People care about this stuff.
Okay.
Honestly, they kind of care about it too much.
True.
So
people might even skip forward to that part.
They might. I don't know. All right.
But yeah, that'll be kind of random topics back and forth. It probably won't be all one singular topic, but yeah.
All right. Let's go to local news.
All right. So, local news, carbon tax.
Yeah. So it's been, the carbon tax has been here in Alberta for 17 days now.
And we have not seen any huge nuclear explosions.
No, that hasn't happened. I mean, gas is cheaper now than it was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
It's almost like the carbon tax only affects prices to a small degree. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Yeah. Let's get down to the brass tacks.
Brass tacks?
The brass tax and the gas tax.
Yes.
And let's get to exactly what the carbon tax is. So, the NDP government is putting a levy on carbon, or levy, tax, call them whichever one you want. I don't really care.
If you're for the NDP, you call it a levy. If you're for the Conservatives, you call it a tax.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't care what you call it. So, they're pricing it for this year, it is 20 cents, $20 per pound? Is that per ton?
Yes, yeah, per ton.
Okay. And so what that means is that there's a 5-cent tax on every liter of gasoline. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up. 4.5 cents.
4.5 cents per liter and $1 per gigajoule on natural gas.
Yeah.
So those are the direct costs to everyone that lives in Alberta.
Now, there's all sorts of arguments about the indirect cost, but we'll probably get into that later.
Well, there will be, everyone says there will be some indirect costs. Your groceries...
Well, you have to, yeah.
Your groceries will go up slightly. Mm-hmm. In fact, even in the CBC.ca tax calculator, groceries is the big one. Yeah. Groceries are short-term going to go up slightly. So, this has caused all sorts of hullabaloo and protests and people yelling to lock Rachel Notley up for some reason. And so we're just going to go into what it is, what are the effects going to be on Albertans. So, the thing is that many other jurisdictions already have gas taxes and carbon tax.
Yeah.
Everywhere has a gas tax.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's been around since, God knows how long.
Oh, yeah, forever. And another thing is that even though the NDP is calling it a carbon tax,
Levy.
Or levy, whatever, the PC government would have put in a 4.5 cent per liter tax. That was part of their platform.
Yeah, back in, 2015 or something?
Yeah,
they were talking about it.
When they had the election, Jim Prentice, rest in peace, actually.
Yeah, legitimately.
Tragedy. As part of its platform, had a 4.5 cent per liter gas tax increase. Mm-hmm. Now, that would not do anything, I believe, to natural gas.
No.
So, but that is... The natural gas is probably the smaller part monetarily.
It depends on what your household's using.
Yeah.
I think, if your household is using natural gas, you probably would feel it about equally on both sides.
Yeah.
But,
Well, and another thing to remember is that this comes with the tax rebates.
Yes. That's the thing that, it's there and it's available to people who pretty much always make under 50,000.
Yeah, so if anybody is making under 50,000 or 100,000 as a couple.
Yeah.
Or, and you can get credits for children as well.
Yeah, it's, I can't remember exactly how much it is per child, but yeah.
Okay.
It's like, 103,000 for a couple. So you get about $30 for each child.
Yeah. So from the average Canadian who's not making large amounts of money, this will end up as a slight reduction of your overall cost.
Yeah.
If you are a family who drives a lot and you make a decent amount of money, it might cost you up to, I would say, $500 a year is a pretty, at the high end.
Yeah, that's a fairly liberal estimate. And I mean, if you're broke Canadians like us, we're
getting it back.
You're getting it back. You might even come out ahead, to be honest.
We're going to come out ahead.
Yeah, if you're a person without a car, you're definitely coming out ahead.
Oh, definitely, for sure. Because the bus tickets are not going up that much.
No, I don't think they're even being affected. I mean, we'll have to wait and see if they actually decide to change the bus rates, but I mean, the bus rates always go up, and you probably wouldn't even notice it based off of the normal rate increases.
Definitely. Now, as you can tell, both of us are not being apocalyptic about this, and are somewhat for it because we both are people that care a lot about the environment and think that climate change is one of the most important issues in our world today. But I thought I would look, now that we've got kind of the basics out of the way, I want to talk about a few nitty-gritty things about how this tax is being implemented and what the NDP government could change or what they could have done a little bit different. So BC has a carbon tax and has for a bit, but theirs is a little bit different.
Okay.
Theirs is what they call revenue neutral.
Yeah, which isn't ours supposed to be?
Ours is, I think they might have marketed it as such, but it is not. It will add a few $1 billion a year to the government coffers.
Okay.
Now, us as a province, because of the downturn in oil, we might need some of that tax money to pay for services, for sure. But what it does, when you have it revenue neutral, what it does do is it decouples the need for a carbon tax, because a carbon tax is one of the economists'
There
there we go, finally got it. economists' favorite strategies for reducing greenhouse gases.
Yeah, well, it's the whole thing about you can try to, prohibit stuff.
Yeah.
But stuff will still happen.
Yeah.
But if you make things less advantageous than other things, then people just naturally, hopefully, turn away from using such things.
Well, it's a similar idea to cigarettes and alcohol.
Yeah, sin taxes. I mean, the conservatives here have been comparing it to a sort of sin tax.
Yeah.
With the idea the liberals think using fuels is
evil. Well, everyone will just hopefully use less fuel. But by making it revenue neutral, and the NDP could have easily done that by just cutting taxes at the lowest, at a couple of tax brackets at the same time. So then the net effect of all of this is to not increase the...
Yeah, but cutting the lowest tax bracket, I mean, yes, they're NDP, but, I mean, Albertans might be unfavorable to that one.
But what it does is it means that makes the carbon levy a purely environmental issue, and it's not, nobody can accuse them of having it being a money grab.
Yeah.
Right? Nobody can accuse them of being like, oh, you're just using this climate change thing to get more money from us.
To pay for all your socialist stuff.
Or, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I think that would have been a decent idea. I'm not sure it's the best idea, but it's something.
Well, that's how they touted it too, right?
Yeah, it's how they touted it. The other thing is that, and this is just a reality, if you live in a rural area, this is going to hit you harder.
Yes. You're using all that machinery. You're driving much for longer distances.
Driving longer distances. You tend to have bigger houses as well.
Yeah.
Right?
And bigger trucks for the work you need to do.
Yeah. It doesn't matter if you are a farmer or if you're like my parents who live in Tofield. You're driving more than we are.
Yeah, you just have to.
You just have to. The places are longer away. So in BC, again, what they did do is they had a additional rebate for people that lived in rural areas, which I think is a pretty good idea.
That's actually a really solid idea. I actually hope they implement that.
Yeah.
That would... Because, that's the one thing is, especially... And I mean, I keep going back to them almost wanting to play, or not play, but, I keep going back to them wanting to do nice by the people who voted them in, which is Albertans.
Yeah.
And Albertans tend to appreciate farmers, and I think putting kind of an olive branch or going in that direction is definitely a wise choice for sure.
I think so, and it's just a reality that...
Yeah.
And if you live in a small town, you cannot do the kinds of things that you could do in a city to reduce your greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
You have to drive into the city. There's
no buses, there's no...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The infrastructure is probably such that you can't even really get an electric car.
Oh, no.
And the electric cars tend not to have the range that you need if you live in a rural area. So because of that, a rebate to rural people makes a lot of sense. The other thing is, and this is, I think, some things that will get worked out eventually, but just haven't yet, is that nonprofit organizations and even municipalities end up getting taxed by this.
Yeah, I guess they would have to hit it because it's just... Well, they get hit by the gasoline tax regardless.
Yeah, but this is an additional... And it's tough on a lot of municipalities.
True.
My dad was talking about... he's involved somewhat in the Chamber of Commerce in Tofield. And their costs for running snow removal, for running everything... City of Edmonton costs for running snow removal. Buses. All those costs are going to go up.
Now, they're going to go up by 0.5% probably? In terms of fuel. Just base fuel.
4.5% really.
Yeah?
Because it's 4.5 cents per liter of a dollar.
Oh, yeah.
So 4.5% is,
right,
that's not nothing.
No, that is still significant.
So again, I think that some sort of rebate system, would be nice to give nonprofits and, municipalities a break. It's kind of weird for...
Well, and with all these extra rebates, they could cut that out of their current, the current money that's going into the coffers, and two birds, one stone.
Exactly. Because I heard on the CPC radio somebody was talking about it's not the custom for governments to tax governments, right? And I agree, that is odd. It is not really... it's an effect, an unintended effect of the policy, but it's not really something I think that should be long term. So I think they should look into giving municipalities and nonprofits a break. Nonprofits will probably, I'm sure, look for ways to reduce their greenhouse gases, definitely. But, you know, some degree of tax rebate or a break for nonprofits would be good as well.
Now, the money going into the coffers, aren't they still, as of yet, keeping that separate and trying to use that specifically for green initiatives?
I believe so. They're wanting to use it for green initiatives.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure some of that will be used for, like, you know, public service announcements for green stuff and whatnot. They always find ways to wriggle around and spend money that way.
Yeah.
Public service announcements by government, by and large, kind of annoy me, to be honest. But
I gotta say, the public service announcements about the carbon tax were hilarious.
Oh, they were absolutely hilarious.
If you want us to criticize something, it's that. Those were bad. What does it mean to me? It means we are diversifying and blah, blah, blah. It doesn't mean it's going to cost you more. No.
No, you can't talk about that. What does the levy mean to you?
Oh, boy. That was bad. So I think that's about all we have to say about the carbon tax. What do you think? What are we looking at for time here?
We got a few more minutes to kill. If you want to have any closing thoughts,
I don't think I have any more closing shots. We've done 17 minutes on this.
Yeah, no, it's not too bad.
All right, so let's go on to our national news story.
All right. So, in national news, we're going to be talking about electoral reform. Now, unfortunately, the lovely, beautifully, intelligently done BuzzFeed quiz that was mydemocracy.ca is no more.
Oh, R.I.P. R.I.P.
Yeah. And apparently, unlike everything else on the internet, you can delete it completely because we can't even find
We can't find the questions.
No, none of the questions at all.
I don't get to know if I am a guardian of democracy.
Oh, a guardian! And, come on, you're gonna be like me. You're gonna be an innovator. Innovator.
What were the frickin' categories?
I don't even remember all of them. Guardian, innovator. Of my conservative friends I know all got different than me, and my liberal friends all got innovators.
What?
Yeah, no, it's it was absolute mess. The questions, instead of focusing specifically on electoral reform, multiple of the questions were asking about things like online voting, which, if you know anything about cybersecurity, is one of the stupidest things you could do, because that's just breakable on, like, so many bloody levels. And then on top of that, there were a bunch of questions that seemed to be pushing for ranked ballot, which isn't the worst thing, don't get me wrong. But I think a lot of the people pushing for this want something other than a system that, in practice, ends up like first past the post in terms of large number of majorities and very little minor party representation.
People have called it a push poll.
Yeah.
For people that don't know what a push poll is, it's a poll that you put out not in order to determine public opinion, but in order to influence public opinion via the wording. So, for example, if I wanted to determine whether people want to go in to fight ISIS, I would say, word the question something like, do you want us to go in to help prevent the atrocities that are happening in Aleppo?
Mm-hmm.
That's not an honest question. That is a skewed question that will influence the people that you give the question to.
Yeah, I don't know if I remember back a few years back, I used to get letters from my MP over here, and they were always all on the lines of, like, incredibly biased questions of do you love terrorism or do you actually want to save people, like stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, no, it was definitely biased. I mean, that's the way I see them going. Go on off of that the whole government itself started being really quiet about the actual promise, literal promise. I mean, it's an electoral promise, so you take it with a grain of salt. But nonetheless, it was pretty overt. It wasn't one of the ones about like, oh, we'll help this, and then you do something very minor that you can argue helps. It was literally last election as first past the post. You can't get more overt than that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And now the new, we just had a big change over of ministers, and the the old minister, I think part of the reason she left is because of all the flack she was getting for this whole thing, and
They put a new face to blame in there.
Exactly.
That's essentially what they did.
You don't know if she's a scapegoat or she was actually behind it, but the new face to blame is pretty much saying, I just need to be briefed, and is not making any promises, which, I mean, probably is smart in a what's the word? Political sense. Yeah, it's probably very smart to say that, because you want to actually understand what you're going to say, and yeah, so who knows what's going to happen, but I thought, I don't know if you have any more comments on you never actually did the survey, did you?
I did not do the survey. I thought that the Conservative Party and the opposition parties made some great jokes about it. They were hilarious.
Just go onto Twitter, you'll find
Twitter. In question period, they described it as, I think they described it as a Cosmo quiz designed by Fidel Castro.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's scathing. I like that.
Where I think the comment was, whatever I choose, it ends up saying I like Justin Trudeau or something like that. It was some great joshing, or as they would say.
Joshing.
Yes. So, I think that's about it. Yeah, there was just recently the minister that was in charge of electoral reform moved on to the minister for status of women.
Yeah.
And then they moved a new novice cabinet minister into the role, which I'm sure she's not going to be used as a scapegoat should this go wrong at all.
Yeah.
I mean, aside, before we get into the
particulars
of electoral systems.
Yeah.
I thought we should just have a moment of reflection for Stephane Dion's political career.
Oh man, that poor guy. I mean, when he was up there, I don't know if you remember years ago when he was up for the liberal leadership and like trying to be the head of the party. I mean, he has very little charisma. I'm sorry, but he's smart. The guy is smart and knows his stuff. It's so sad that he just, like, on the actual diplomatic side, he's a little lacking, I think.
I mean, remember, this is a guy who was the middle of the three people that managed to get out charismaed by the dashing and always just telegenic Stephen Harper. A man with a personality that is, I mean, I'm not going to say robot-like.
No.
But, robot-ish.
Robot-ish. He's vaguely android.
He's vaguely android-like. I mean, actually, I think the host on Westworld had way more personality. But again, Stephane Dion, out-charismaed by that.
Yeah.
That's, I think, all you need to know about his, unfortunate end to his political career. For those that don't know, he was Foreign Affairs Minister, cabinet reshuffle. He is out of cabinet completely.
He's getting older.
He might quit public life. So I just thought before we get into it, we should just have a moment of reflection for the political career of Stephane Dion. R.I.P.
I need something to pour out for my homie.
For your homie, Stephane Dion. Alright, enough messing around. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of this.
Alright, so, speaking of electoral reform, let's talk about what we have now.
Okay.
First past the post. Okay. It's what we all know. You get a ballot with a bunch of names you don't know and the one name that you actually want in. You check beside that guy, or the party, or there was a few districts here during one of the elections, I don't know if you heard. They got the, Progressive Conservatives and the Conservative Party, I believe, were the two names. And a whole bunch of people checked the wrong one because they didn't even know what party they were voting for, the name of the person. And then got mad after the fact that they voted for the party they got, like, no votes. So there's your first past the post system. Okay. I mean, what it basically does is you end up with a person with downwards of like 30% of the vote, but usually around 40, I think, to 60% of the vote getting in, which is not necessarily the majority, but it is a fair number of people like them. Almost all the seats go to party members, although independents, if they're in a riding where people really like that specific person, they get in fine.
Yep.
So you have a positive for people who don't want to join the party. But yeah, when it really comes down to is the most number of seats takes it. So you have 40 to 60% of people voting each person in, and of those, 40 to 60% of the seats makes the government. So
now the problem with it is that it tends to cause a lot of disconnect between the amount of votes cast and the result of the election. This has gone and favored both parties, the Liberals and the Conservatives, historically.
It's favored the NDP provincially here.
It favored the NDP provincially. It's favored. It was a huge boon back when the Bloc Québécois was actually a viable political entity. They would always get 5% of the vote, but have 2 to 3 times that at least of the number of seats in Parliament, giving them a disproportionate influence. When the Reform Party was coming to was starting to ramp up, they suffered from that because they were a national party.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
the national party who got way more in terms of votes than the Bloc Québécois, but
they were spread out.
Spread out so far, so much so that if this is a little piece of historical fact, the Bloc Québécois were the official opposition ones.
Well, and I mean, we'll talk about other systems later and how that spreads out the vote.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have parties now, the special interest parties, they get barely any seats when actually vote-wise, they're represented by a fair number of Canadians. And that's not even counting the possible effects of strategic voting, which I hazard are actually fairly strong.
Yeah.
I bet a lot of people are voting for one of the top threes instead of their actual favorite party, because there's no chance in hell they're getting in, let alone even getting a seat in most places. The first past the post, it does have its advantages. I mean, for people who like majorities, it's also good, because majorities arguably do get stuff done.
Yeah.
Because, and I mean, we're going to have a very interesting, not that we're talking much about the states, but with, the Republicans in control of pretty much everything.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see how much is able to happen, because there'll be very little things the Democrats can do to stop stuff. But, with first past the post, those are that's where we sit on it. And that's the system, honestly, a lot of democracies have, because I think a lot of it is the ease of making the ballot and explaining it to people. It's very simple, but I personally feel like it has a lot of flaws. Yeah. So,
I was just gonna say, I talked a little bit more along view about how it's affected Canadian politics over the last bit, but I'm just gonna mention that, in the last election, the first past the post, system greatly favored the Liberals.
Oh, heavily.
They got low 40s, I want to say, for percentage of the vote.
Yeah, I think it was around 44.
And they got like 60% of the seats or some such.
Yeah.
Before the election before that, it heavily favored the Conservatives. The Conservatives got 40% of the vote and managed to get a majority.
Yeah. And the polls are, even during the last election, were actually saying the NDP might even somehow be able to take the election when they're pretty much the third party in Canada. Like they I don't think they regularly get more than the other two.
No, never.
Yeah.
Not even in the heyday of Jack Layton did they get those kind of numbers.
I mean, it was just a poll, so you never know.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about some of the other alternatives and how they might be a little bit better and how
alternatives, like alternative vote.
Oh boy, this is going to be my life now.
This is going to be your life.
Okay, so explain to me what the alternative vote is.
Alright, alternative vote. So there's a few different ways of doing this. There's single transferable is kind of like an alternative vote.
Okay.
But,
so you've used lots of words.
I don't
understand.
I will go into it.
Okay.
So the basic idea is that you vote for one person, but who you vote for changes depending on how many votes the parties get. So this pretty much exclusively helps parties, although it does allow those independents in. But the way it works is whoever you vote for first, if they don't get in, and whoever's the lowest on the rankings of the usually this is how it works. Whoever's the lowest on the rankings of or on the numbers for the election, all their votes then get spread out to all the second choices.
Okay.
And then as you keep going up until you're left with usually two parties, with one party with the majority.
Okay. So you would, how the ballot would look was you would have, all the people and you would rank them, right?
Yes. It would end up with basically ranked. Yeah, and the single transferable, you only transfer it once.
Okay.
But with most of it, yeah, you end up with basically a ranked thing. So it's still, honestly, it looks the same.
Yeah.
You just put numbers down. We went to university, the Students' Union, all those ballots are pretty much ranked.
That's true.
And, the way, it's all, in my opinion, a very simple system.
Yeah, it would be.
I understand the positives of it. Now, interestingly enough, then you end up with majorities for all the seats. Not necessarily for the government.
Yeah.
But every riding ends up with a majority. Usually.
Yeah.
If it's single transferable, that's not the case. But if you end up boiling down and they cross a threshold, sometimes that threshold's 50, 40, whatever.
Yeah.
You end up with large numbers of people officially voting, although sometimes it's their second or third or fourth choice even.
Yeah.
But the nice thing about that is also on these, you generally don't have to give somebody a number if you don't want to. So if you utterly detest a party, you just don't write anything down and your vote will never go to them.
Okay.
Even if it gets boiled down. So there's, there's different systems to run. Different countries run it. I can't remember all the countries that actually run it.
I know France does runoff elections.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be similar.
Except it's a new election.
Yeah.
They do one election, and if nobody gets 150%, then they run another election.
Yeah. So that would be a lot more. I'm sure that costs a bit more.
That would I wouldn't not like that system just because of the cost. Yeah. Now I have a question. How do you think that if we Canada changed to a ranked ballot alternate vote system, how would that affect how the seats pull out? It would be closer, most likely, to the vote would be closer to the number of seats that we get, right?
Yeah. No, see, the big thing about that is it helps eliminate the vote splitting.
Yeah.
And it also helps people not worry about strategic voting so much. You still can. It's like you get to vote for who you want to and you get the strategic vote.
Yeah.
Just your second or third choice is for the strategic vote.
Do you have any sense of what parties would benefit?
Well, in Canada, I think, honestly, the two Liberal parties would benefit because federally, we have mostly one Conservative. I mean, Christian Heritage does actually show up in the numbers a little bit, which is a fairly Conservative party, yeah. But kind of, I think they have about the same numbers as the Marxist-Leninist party.
Yeah.
Which would obviously probably, their second votes would go to the NDP or the Greens or something.
Yeah, the marijuana party.
Yeah, or the marijuana. Their second vote goes to a party that's even less has less of a chance than them. No, but the Greens, the Greens, the NDP, the Liberals. I don't want to say they all think alike, and I'm sure there's some people who are Liberal that if they don't get in, they would rather Conservatives than NDP.
There's some. The Liberals are definitely a centrist party.
Yeah,
and there are within the big tent, as they say, of the Liberals, there are some right-leaning.
Yeah, but I would hold that most of the people who vote Liberal are left-leaning over right-leaning.
Yes, and also any NDP, pretty much any NDP are going to put their second choice as the Liberal, so that would...
Green.
Green.
I think Green, but Green has less of a chance than the NDP.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so that's how I think it would affect politics is actually it would give the Liberals, the NDP, a slight bit of boost. We'd have to see how maybe Conservative policy would actually react to that.
Maybe it would move a little bit towards the center.
Yeah,
although
it's fair. Like the Conservatives here are honestly very similar to the Democrats in the States.
They're very centrist in general. I mean, Stephen Harper, during his tenure as Prime Minister, was not a hugely unpopular figure.
No, and I mean, there are definitely people that dislike them, and specific policies, I think, are more the case than in general.
Yeah. So you get the law and order mandatory minimum stuff, and and then by the end, the niqab stuff.
The niqab stuff, what was it? The C30.
The bill C50.
C50. Yeah, C50.
Which is still in place, isn't the Liberals have not done anything to that.
No, they weren't. Like, the thing is it was going to get ire for whoever put that in.
Yeah.
But it's useful for the government. I don't like it, but it is.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that you're like, yeah, let them take the heat, and I'll just keep using it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's kind of where we stand on that. And then finally, I guess there are more systems than what I'm saying here, but I'm kind of saying what I think are the big three.
Okay.
In terms of options.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one.
So the next one is your proportional.
Yeah.
Now there are a whole bunch of different ways to do proportional.
Okay.
But the base, at the very end, what you're trying to end up with number of seats equals the votes almost to a T.
Okay.
Now, there are a few factors to consider. Some add a threshold, which basically means you don't get a seat or 2 seats or 3 seats unless you have enough votes to warrant that.
Okay, so I can't create the Brent Endringa party.
No.
And then get enough of my friends to vote and get me a seat in my riding.
Yeah.
And then have that mean that I win.
So you could have it at 1 seat.
Yeah.
You have to have at least enough to cover over 1 seat, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like whatever integer your votes fall on seat count wise, if that makes any sort of sense. You would have. Some would put it even higher, 2, 3, 5.
Yeah.
As current, at the current proportion of votes, Greens would probably have about 10 seats.
Okay.
And I believe the Marxist-Leninists and the Christian Heritage, who I've mentioned, would each have 1 or 2.
Okay, so you've done the small one. If we had a purely proportional, let's just go with purely proportional. How would our legislature look like right now?
Well, our legislature would equal the numbers of the last election, which was 40-some for the Liberals, and then tailing off their Conservatives and NDP.
Yeah,
and then
so the Conservatives have about 30-some.
Yeah.
30.
20-some, I think it was for the NDP, and then about 10% for the Greens, 10. Yeah, they didn't have 10% of the votes, about 5% for the Greens.
And then the Bloc gets some.
Yeah, and then the Bloc would get some. Yeah, it all kind of mixes up there.
Yeah.
But that's how it would work. Now, the big thing, if you're doing purely proportional, is usually it's the government or the ruling party gets to choose. Now, the big thing I didn't mention here is independents have no hope. You don't get in as an independent. You have to be within a party because you're not getting, because the votes are split across the whole country usually.
Yeah.
There are systems that account for this, but by and large, you don't get independents in. Also, because the party generally chooses it, you can have people from your riding that are your MPs, sort of.
Yeah.
But a lot of it is very almost riding-less. Like, there's not really your local MP who you voted for. It was just you vote for a party and they figure it out.
And the other thing, if we did a purely proportional system, is that we would be running almost entirely off of minority governments.
Yeah. That's actually one thing I'm more in favor of.
Yeah.
Because I like the idea of politicians having to bloody well work together to get stuff done. And I've heard friends of mine argue that there are disadvantages with small parties. If they have enough votes to say something over, they can almost hold it as leverage and get something more controversial passed. But I trust that politicians are smart enough to, maybe this is a bad trust, but are smart enough to figure out, what is worth fighting for votes for and what might be like, oh, you want to just like upend this entire thing. No, we won't let you.
Okay.
So that's that one. Now, mixed member is my favorite, which basically means that you increase the riding size. I think it's around 50%.
Okay.
Or whatever. And you vote for a candidate in your riding like normal.
Okay.
There's no transferable vote. You vote for one guy, majority gets it.
Yeah.
So you're going to end up with a local MP with 30 to 60% of the vote.
Yeah.
Now, this local MP is going to be your local representative. He might not be from the party you like, but just like my local MP is Liberal, and not everyone here voted Liberal, you get to talk with him about local issues. He goes to local stuff, does the fancy dinners, goes to the old folks' home to make sure they're all fine and dying well and all that sort of stuff.
Goes to the local, in my case, although it was generally the MLA, goes to our school award ceremony.
Yes.
That was at Stelmach, by the way.
Yeah. Steady Eddie. Huh?
Steady Eddie.
Well,
R.I.P. for the political career of Steady Eddie, by the way.
Like, our church opening had the local MLA. I don't think they had the MP at that time. But it's all the governmental stuff. So you get that.
Yeah.
But on top of that, over a larger region, which could consist of about 10 ridings, you'll have some floaters.
Yeah.
And these are people that are just used from each party to balance out to make the proportions work.
Yeah.
So you have your local one, you vote for him, you get the party. So if you really hate your party's like representative in your area and you think he's a douchebag, you don't have to vote for him, but you can still vote for your party and affect them.
So you have two votes.
You have 2 votes.
You have one vote for a party, one vote for a representative.
Yes.
And then, so how would this affect how the legislature looks like right now?
It would, like the purely proportional, it would reflect just by party lines who has in, with the exception there might be 1 or 2 independents. Because of the local election, you have the option of independents getting in the same.
One could argue that there might be a rise of more independents.
Yes.
Because you can vote for the party, and some people might come through not the traditional party ways and have some success.
Yeah. Now, you also, if you're from a very niche party, let's say Green, that's a good example. Because
I always like the marijuana party.
Sure. Marijuana party. Let's say they actually get someone in. People stop strategically voting Liberals or NDP.
Yeah.
So you get in. So you're not going to have one as a local representative, almost for certain.
Yeah.
However, there would be one for, let's say, the city of Edmonton. You would have one.
Yeah.
And so if you wanted to specifically talk to your party's MP, you could actually talk to him. Now, granted, he would have a fairly large area. As you get into rural communities, his area would be massive. He wouldn't be, like, worrying about every little niggly thing in your town or your city or your village or hamlet or whatever. Tiny little hamlet like Sherwood Park. But he would be worried about, like, the party's issues, which might be more what you're concerned about voting. If you're voting the marijuana party, that might be really high on your list of...
Oh boy.
So, that's how that would work. And we're pretty much running out of time here. So I don't know if you have any final points.
I think this
clarifications.
I think this is in general. I'm going to have a quick moment to talk about something. I want the first past the post system to change.
Amen.
Because in pretty much random directions, it causes huge distortions between the votes and the amount of political power you choose. And right now, if you're a left-leaning person, that is working in your favor. Or left or centrist leaning person, it's working in your favor. That will not always be the case.
Mm-hmm.
If the political system landscape change, if the economy goes down, if depending what shakes out with the Conservative Party leadership campaign, and if all the systems we talked about will decrease the possibility of somebody extreme getting into power through a fluke of the system.
Which is honestly ironic, because I feel like a lot of the people pushing, and even I didn't mention this, but the mydemocracy.ca thing actually had questions of, do you really want proportional if it means extreme groups getting representation? But it sound like a fear-mongering question, but really what it came down to is you're going to get 1 or 2 seats at most.
Yeah.
Which is no power, almost. In a 300 some seat legislature? Yeah. It's or not legislature, a parliament?
Whereas under the current system, if all you need is the right 30 to 40%.
Yeah.
And the Conservative leadership race, there are some people in the Conservative leadership race, Kelly Leach, or maybe Kevin O'Leary.
He's not officially in the race yet.
He told bigwigs in Florida that he would be.
Yeah.
Okay, he's basically in the place, alright?
Yeah,
he just hasn't gone in because that would mean he would have to embarrass himself in French.
Oh no, you got me thinking of that.
Because he doesn't speak French. But those people could get, with the right platform, the right 40%.
Yeah.
And that would be and we would start going down some of the Trump style stuff, which would be bad.
Yeah.
So that's why I really think it's important that we push for this and that we get a different system that makes the voting more accurately reflect.
Yeah.
I said that backwards. Makes the amount of seats in the legislature actually reflect the amount of votes.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to go ranked or alternate vote, which in my opinion is a lesser system because doesn't end up with a proportional numbers.
Yeah.
But you end up with your majority. And honestly, I'm more okay with that because at the very least, it helps reduce the vote splitting and some of the strategic voting,
definitely.
which in my mind are two of the strategic voting in particular is bad because, in my opinion, democracy works when people vote what they want, their conscience, whatever. And when you can't do that because for fear of, Trump light or somebody getting in, you're going to affect that whole thing.
Exactly.
So,
I think we should definitely move on to our international story. We've gone very long on this particular topic.
We'll see how long the international or the news at the end goes.
Yeah, exactly. We're okay.
We're all right.
All right, so last year, Rodrigo Duterte got elected as the president of the Philippines. Before then, he was the mayor of I forgot the name of the city. What's the name of the city he was mayor of? This is great radio. Great radio right here.
May have to cut this out.
I don't know. This is the best. Davao City.
Davao City! Yeah.
He was the longtime mayor of Davao City. Yeah. And he ran on a very, shall we say, interesting platform. He, for the longest time in Davao City, he had run a program in which he had gotten vigilante squads in order to
commit extrajudicial killings
of specifically drug addicts and drug dealers.
Mm-hmm.
This has been going on for a while in that specific city. And he then ran for president, won, and currently in the Philippines, there are gangs of vigilantes going around to kill drug addicts.
Suspected.
Or even suspected drug addicts and drug dealers.
Yeah.
And currently, the amount of killings, 2/3 being done by vigilantes, 1/3 being done by police.
At the best count.
At last count, by, the usual Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch type organizations, is 6,000. Could you bring up the actual number?
Yeah, we got about 6,200.
602,000, of which about a third of them have been vigilante style, and 2/3.
2/3 are the vigilantes, and then the third are the police operations.
Yes.
Which is still huge, 2,200.
That's a huge. I believe the population of the Philippines, to give some idea, is that it is about 100 million people.
And we're not even talking about a full year here. We're talking about 6 months.
Yeah, we're talking about 6 months. It started July when Duterte went into power. You've had almost 50,000 people arrested, and you've had almost 1 million people. 1% of the population of the Philippines has surrendered for fear of death.
Yeah. And I don't know if anyone's here seen videos or anything of this, but there's literally police walking around and just finding bodies in the street and being like, well, we think they were drug dealers. The police officially does not condone. I mean, I think Duterte, even to an extent, unofficially doesn't condone. Yeah. But through all his rhetoric is definitely promoting this.
Oh, yes.
And, people literally have said, this thing that he said is rhetorical. He doesn't actually mean go do this. But, the police are trying to say, we're doing our jobs best we can. And I'm sure some officers are, don't get me wrong. But they're just they literally just walk around and just, search people everywhere on the streets. They go to the drug-infested areas. Yeah. And they just start stopping and searching everyone with, just because that's where they live or that's where they are. Yeah. And they'll find a few people with drug paraphernalia and arrest them. And then on occasion, they'll, break into houses to get at people, and people end up shot. Tons of people, I know how... You get the idea that most criminals will say, I never did it. But so many people are saying that's not true. Yeah. And the numbers are staggering. I do realize that there's a drug problem there, but those are still staggering numbers.
The other thing, so Duterte has said that
there you go.
Is justified because Philippines is becoming a narco state. Now, according to every international organization that has looked at this, this is absolutely false. The drug use rates in the Philippines are not significant. They are, in fact, kind of below average. According to the Philippines Dangerous Drugs Board, which is a government body, out of 100 million, 1.8 million used illegal drugs in 2015. That's easy math of 1.8%, which is very low.
What's the states at?
I couldn't tell you what the states are at.
All right, so looks like, what have we got here? There, United States.
8%.
8%.
In the States, we're looking at 8%. Now, how much is that marijuana? How much of it's heroin? How much of it's fentanyl?
Fentanyl! Ooh. We should maybe talk about that sometime.
I'm sure we will. But one depressing thing at a time. One depressing thing at a time.
Is it a depressant, though? Actually, it isn't.
It is. Good job bringing some levity to the situation. So this is an absolute travesty of human rights.
Yeah.
And 6,000 now, that number will just continue to go up. Duterte is a little bit of a interesting character.
Megalomania?
Yeah. He, when talking at a campaign rally about a 1989 gang rape and killing of Australian missionaries, made the comment, the mayor should have been first to rape a Australian missionary, was a comment that he made.
Because she was pretty.
Because she was pretty, of course. Which is...
It's such a shame she was raped. She was so pretty.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Other thing is that one of the lead critics of Duterte is a lady named De Lima. Leila De Lima. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
Leila, it would be.
Yeah. Who has been a big critic of the president. Essentially, Duterte has simply just called her a slut. Because
that's what you do with women you disagree with, right?
Pretty much. He repeatedly criticized for an affair, for her alleged propensity for sex, that she was a moral woman who had no right to criticize the extrajudicial killings because she had a very sordid personal and official life.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. He has... In international relations, he has a tendency to simply insult anyone who's insulted him. When the European Union criticized, the killing of thousands of people,
he very professionally
gave everyone the middle finger and told them to fuck off.
Lovely
person. He then, to a U.S. ambassador, used a homophobic slur. So he's pretty much terrible. And this has gone a little bit shorter, which is probably fine, because I'm not sure how much of this depressingness anyone can handle. But I just...
Well, there is something we haven't covered, though.
What is that?
So we talked more about the deaths and the killings, and especially...
Yeah.
But even for the people who are, through the judicial means, brought to prisons...
Yeah.
The conditions there are deplorable as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we're looking at... Currently, as I understand, they are still being fed, but they're living in massively... cramped quarters.
Yeah.
You just see literally them all laying on the floor, side by side, no room for anyone.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of bad stuff is going down in those prisons because there's not really any way to police that number of prisoners.
No, not at all.
And these are people who are, by the government's assertions, not the extrajudicial killings that they're discrediting. These are the ones brought in by the police.
Yeah.
And even still, we've got human rights issues here.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. So this is just a story that I haven't heard a lot of coverage on. Everyone's been talking about everything, all the craziness happening in the States, everything happening in Aleppo, and all these things are important. But I just thought that I would give a little bit of info about this situation that I don't think a lot of people are focusing on.
Yeah, no, and I'd highly recommend, especially when it comes to world news, going beyond just states of Europe and even the Middle East now seems to be. Not saying that we should ignore what's going on there, but I mean there are tons of stories from Asia, Africa, places that we don't often talk about that are just
exactly.
They deserve coverage.
Exactly. So that's why I wanted to talk a little bit at length about this specific issue, because it is such a huge amount of atrocities are being done, and not a lot of people are talking about it. So that's why I'm talking about it.
Yeah.
So, in a complete and utter
Total shift.
weird segue, let's talk about news that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So, movies.
Movies. So this year has been a year where there were movies.
There were lots of movies.
There are lots of movies.
You were far more of a cinemaphile than I was.
I definitely was. This year was probably one of the best years on record for animated movies.
Oh.
Every animated movie that came out, for the most part, was reviewed well. The crappy singing animal movie at the end of the year apparently wasn't crap. I didn't see it because I'm not a child.
Really?
I'm not a child. I have...
The more you say that, the more it becomes true.
That's true. Exactly how it goes. But you had, the beginning of the year, one of the best movies about race ever to be made. But ignoring the fact that it starred talking animals. Mm-hmm. Zootopia was a great movie about racism.
Mm-hmm. And it was also funny.
It was very... was funny. Shakira sang a song for some reason. Remember Shakira?
Oh, I know Shakira. Like, I don't know anything from modern music, but Shakira is at least still somewhat on my radar.
Oh, good. Yeah, I wonder if Shakira has parlayed this into a new album or anything.
No idea.
All right.
A lot of those artists are still releasing stuff, and then when you find out, you're like, oh, this is still good, just nobody's remembered them because they've gone on to the next new thing.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So you had Zootopia, you had Moana, you had Finding Dory.
All of which I have not yet seen.
All of which were excellent.
You saw Moana?
Moana was good, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
what song was best in Moana?
Ooh, I liked the... It's between the Flight of the Conchords guy as a lobster, or a crab. He was a crab.
Was it Brett or Jermaine?
It was Jermaine. Jermaine's the one that's...
does most of the...
His job now is to be the villain in animated movies. He's done 2 or 3 of them.
Oh.
He was in Rio.
Oh, right, that was him.
And he was in one of the 15 Ice Ages. Don't ask which one.
Yeah, no, I'll see another one of those when hell freezes over.
I mean, yeah. But he has a song. He's like a bee villain, right? And they go down to his lair and he sings about how he's very shiny. The other song I really liked was the Rock's song is Maui.
Yeah, that one I've heard, and is actually really... It's funny, because it's like The Rock... Yes, he started off in wrestling, but wrestlers are actually somewhat pretty decent actors, because you got to be able to act through some pretty extreme stuff, where normally your body would be like, nope. Nope.
Well, and of course you had Lin-Manuel Miranda writing the songs for that film. Get ready to hear that name for people that aren't aware of him. He's going to be a big figure in entertainment for the next few years because...
he's killed it the last few times.
Yeah. Well, he wrote, directed, and starred in Hamilton, the Broadway musical sensation, that I haven't seen and nobody's seen because I don't live in New York.
Mike Pence, I think, saw it.
Mike Pence did see it. He was much more gracious about that than Donald Trump was.
I know. Donald Trump's gracious about nothing. Anyway, we're off.
We're off
to moves that might actually matter.
Yeah, let's go back to steer our way back into nonsense. So that was great. Kubo and the Two Strings, also amazing. Mm-hmm. So really good year for animated movies. For superhero movies,
Marvel did pretty well. I have not seen a DC one, but I don't know if that's actually a problem.
I have not seen Suicide Squad or Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating that is the actual name they went with.
Yeah. No, like, the funny thing is, when I remember with Suicide Squad, and remember back when the trailer came out, the reveal, and then you had, what's his name, Jared Leto, doing his whole Jokerisms, and people were like, oh, it's gonna be so good, look how edgy, and apparently, like, comes out in the movie, and he's only in a little bit, and he actually is crazy hammy, and does not a great job from everything, pretty much, I've heard.
Yeah, he was mad because apparently they cut a lot of his scenes.
Yeah.
But,
and he cut a lot of his hair.
Good job. That was a joke. Yeah, Marvel and Doctor Strange and Civil War both were excellent.
Doctor Strange, like, the story was okay.
Yeah.
It wasn't, it was very serviceable would be the term I would
It's a
use.
Marvel plot.
It's a Marvel plot. It has the standard bad guy with, like, very little, acted very well,
Yeah.
but very little character
Well,
interaction.
Mads Mikkelsen could act.
He's done a villain before, hasn't he?
He's done a villain or two. He was
Hannibal.
Well, yeah, I know, but he was also Le Chiffre.
What's the Chief?
Le Chiffre.
What's that from?
It's from a movie with Daniel Craig in it, and I don't remember who else was in that. No, Judy Dench was still in it. Yeah.
Judy Dench?
There was.
I know that name. What did...
Okay, and then the movie was set in a casino. It had a lot of cards in it.
Oh, Royale.
It was Casino Royale. Yes,
Yes.
he was the villain in Casino Royale.
Right. So you see so many movies, even though I haven't really seen so many this year.
We were discussing this earlier, and apparently Christian has seen 3 movies.
4 in the theater. I have seen 4 movies in the theater this year.
One of them was The Godfather.
Hey, phenomenal movie.
Okay, I recently saw The Godfather.
I know you didn't really care for it, did you?
I liked it fine. It was a good movie, but it has some, in my mind, pacing issues at the beginning.
It's a relic of its time. Okay, it's the pacing.
That wedding goes on for like 20 minutes.
I know. You were swearing up and down. When will the wedding stop? When will the wedding stop?
Eventually, the wedding finally stopped and the movie started. But anyway, so it was a good year for Marvel because they just make really good movies.
Yeah, Doctor Strange, gorgeous, but I really love the CG in that. Like, the way they had the gears and everything kind of in motion when all that stuff is going on.
Yeah, and then the ending with the... My name is Dormano. No, not my name is Dormano.
No.
My name is Dumano. I killed my father, prepared to die. That's what it was, right?
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking
Inigo Montoya.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes. No. Hello, Dormano. I'm here again. Yeah.
That was a very clever ending.
Well, it was nice because they didn't just have a big punch-out scene, which they've
Yeah.
done in the last, quite a few.
Yeah,
and although they're very creative and they had some interesting stuff, I mean, even... Like, going back to the beginning, they were creative. Iron Man 1 had the, like, whole tank missile, like, thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, you had interesting stuff, but this one was really awesome because it was lighthearted. It had the big scale, but it didn't feel like... Felt kind of distant from the rest of it, so it made sense why these guys weren't in the rest of the Marvel kind of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And then, it was very creative. It wasn't a big punch-out. It was just... It was using Doctor Strange's smarts to his advantage.
Exactly, because he's, a neuroscience turned master wizard. He's pretty smart.
Yeah.
Civil War, I thought was really, really good.
I definitely, that movie did have some issues, don't get me wrong.
What issues did you have with Civil War?
Civil War, okay, the big fight was good.
Yeah.
But I don't think they really played up why everyone was on each side as well as, I mean, they had tons of people. It's really hard with that number.
Yeah.
But, like, some of the motivations and stuff seemed a little off.
Yeah, I could explain why each person is on each side.
No, I know you can. I think they did. I'm not saying they didn't explain it.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking it wasn't fleshed out all that well. And afterwards, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But during the fight, it's like, kind of like, okay, I guess why I get why you're on this side. Ant-Man being the biggest example. Like, his whole movie arc was for his daughter.
Yeah.
And now he's living in the middle of nowhere, like, hiding from the government because of his choice.
They just found him. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, his choice of staying with his daughter, I don't know why he would take that, like, get involved in that side, whereas that's the ultimate conclusion.
I guess if you go to the very end, the thing I liked about about the whole thing is that after everything is world-ending stuff,
Yeah.
it narrowed in at the end. The reveal is, no, this isn't a guy trying to take over the world. This is just a guy with a petty grudge.
Yeah.
And I really like that.
Well, and it shows also, like, with how the superheroes, like, I think the argument about, oh, you killed a few people and you actually saved an entire city.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's still kind of ridiculous. It's
Yeah.
like, people getting outraged over that is like, I mean, I can understand it, but I think it's still super silly.
Yeah.
But, yeah, the thing about that was, at the very end, I liked the idea that it was a petty grudge, but also how they got big, they destroyed an airport over this big fight.
Yeah, they had a big fight
and then it's over nothing.
and then, well, and also it's a big fight, and then they they narrow in to just the Captain America versus Iron Man with the Winter Soldier fight, and it's just it's a small, brutal fight.
Oh, that is one of the hard. Like, there's so many hard hits in that fight. It's so good
when you compare that to the fun. There's Spider-Man, and there's thing, and then even the conclusion of. Although the conclusion of that took a nice dark turn with War Machine getting paralyzed.
Yeah.
Did you notice, by the way, the nod to that in Doctor Strange?
No.
Okay, when he's in the car before he gets that crash, he's like, "What cases do you have for me?" And one of them is like, "Well, there's this Air Force pilot that got paralyzed when he was in an experimental iron suit."
Oh, I did not catch that. That's a lovely one.
So it was just a little. It was like one of the only ties to the larger Marvel movies in Doctor Strange. Yeah, so that's just the thing. But when it got down to the smaller fight, it was just a brutal fight because the backstory of everything it makes sense because it's like Iron Man just realized that the Winter Soldier killed his parents.
Yes,
and yes, at that point it's revealed. That yes, that was the big plan of the bad guy. What was the guy's name?
I can't remember. It doesn't really matter, to be honest.
The bad guy all along was to reveal that and tear apart the Avengers. Yeah. But at that point, Iron Man doesn't care. He wants to.
No, kill. And it doesn't matter that the Winter Soldier was under coercion at the time.
No, he doesn't care. Yeah. He wants to kill Winter Soldier, and Captain America isn't going to let him. And it just. Such a tight construction for a fight.
It works perfectly.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was really good. Other movies that I saw that were really good, 10 Cloverfield Lane was a very interesting movie. It's not at all like Cloverfield. The people that didn't like Cloverfield, it doesn't matter. Basically, it has nothing to do with the original Cloverfield movie. John Goodman is terrifying in that movie. He plays, so the scenario, if you don't know, is that this woman is driving her car. She crashes her car. She wakes up in a bunker. Mm-hmm. And this bunker is led by John Goodman, who's this creepy, kind of paternalistic kind of character. Yeah. And there's also another guy. There's three people in the bunker. And he is claiming that there's some sort of big attack and the world is essentially ended.
Oh, okay.
That's the setup. It's a really good kind of horror thriller setup. Mm-hmm. And the ending twist is kind of interesting. Not going to say what it is.
Not going to spoil it?
I'm not going to spoil it. I'm not going to spoil it. The other movie that I saw this year was probably the best movie I saw this year. Arrival. Definitely the best movie I saw this year. A smart sci-fi, Amy Adams, Jeremy Renner, both excellent. They are assigned in order to understand these aliens. That's about all I'm going to say. Because the big twist, will give away.
Yeah, they're doing twists so much now, but yeah, I understand that.
The twist of the movie, basically, you can't say much without giving away the twist. I will just say that it's excellent, very smart sci-fi.
Did you actually hear, I heard something recently, there was some studies done. Actually knowing the spoiler before you go into the movie can actually increase your
enjoyment. I have heard that. Heard that, yes. Which is another interesting concept.
I mean, it harkens me back to, like, old theater back in, like, 1500s. Shakespeare time. Because what they would do is, before the play would start, because you might not catch all the dialogue or whatnot, they would have a Cliff Notes version of the actors quickly running through the plot and saying, this is what's going on, So if you don't catch everything or you had to go to the bathroom, you're not actually missing the plot. Yeah. So it's interesting that, like, that actually stuff like that might heighten your enjoyment to know what's going on.
No, I actually knew the twist before I went in.
Oh yeah, did you guess it or did you?
No, I knew it before Arrival, and I was enjoying watching it with Angel, who's my wife. And looking at it's like, do you get it? And also watching it, knowing the twist, you see the little hints to the twist.
Well, that's why I like the second watching in movies with a big twist like that. You can catch all that.
Do you know the twist of Arrival?
I do not.
Okay, I'm not going to spoil it for you because it is a very clever twist.
Yeah, those are the best.
A very, very clever twist. That was really good. I also saw a couple of other kind of Oscar baity movies that were quite good. I saw Sully.
Oh, Sully, yes.
Sully was a very good movie. Tom Hanks was Sully, and he was good as Sully, and
the Tom Hanks is just a great actor, always.
And Clint Eastwood's direction was not showy at all. It just told the story. There was
Well,
no
that's how you do a
flourish.
story like that, right? You can't. I mean, as I the movies, we were talking about this in the summer. Actually, I remember.
Yeah.
Back at what was it, Wands, and yeah, Sully's is very much down to earth kind of story with no big flourishes or whatnot. It's very grounded.
Yeah, I was waiting for them to Hollywood it up.
Yeah.
I was waiting for it. There's a point in the movie, and there's no spoilers because everyone knows how how everything's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Where the captain, Captain Sully is about to leave the plane. He's the last person to leave the plane. And he looks back, and I was like, there's going to be like a baby there somewhere. And it's like, no, there's no one. He just leaves. Everybody just kind of does their jobs in a really good fashion, and that's what the movie is about. And the style of the movie fits that. Another good movie in a similar vein was Deepwater Horizon.
Yep.
Very, very good. Come on. Mark Wahlberg.
Yep.
Very good as a
Singer.
as the hero of the tale. That one I could tell they Hollywooded it up a bit.
Yeah.
But it's, again, good disaster fare. Well done. It's directed by Peter Berg, so that means that you get a lot of American flags for no reason. Which is kind of amusing.
Yeah.
Speaking of directors that have their own style and their own images that are in films, Mel Gibson made a very good movie this year.
Yes.
Hacksaw Ridge, which you, again, have not seen.
No, but I've heard. Like, all these movies you're listing are on my list of I have to see, but I've got more important things to do, like apparently recently binging The Office again.
What are you doing?
Not watching Deepwater Horizon and Hacksaw Ridge, apparently.
Hacksaw Ridge was excellent. It's a Mel Gibson movie, so you know it's going to be gory and
Brutal
violence. The story, the first bit of it, when you have the Andrew Garfield playing the most aw shucks good guy dating his wife, soon to be wife.
Yeah.
And being, heroic. That's pretty well done. It's serviceable, right?
Yeah.
It provides a background for the character enough that you believe that he does these heroic things. And then once you get to the actual meat and potato, then I guess the second act is him in the training camp.
Yeah.
Going through trials and tribulations there. That's pretty well done. Vince Vaughn does his best, who's the guy from Full Metal Jacket?
Oh, you're talking about the drill sergeant?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually really Lee something. Yeah, he's only really appeared in that. He was not really a big actor or anything.
Yeah. Well, Vince Vaughn does that because...
Yeah. Well, that's just the drill sergeant.
He's the drill sergeant in a movie, so he does an impression of that. And some funny stuff happens with the squad mates. They introduce the squad that don't like him at the beginning because he won't touch a gun, but then they grow to respect him, and of course, yada yada. And then they get to Hacksaw Ridge, and everybody's arms gets blown off.
And shit goes down.
And that's pretty much what happens. And it's a Mel Gibson movie, so of course you have a lot of shots of him where they have some messianic overtones, let's just say. Yeah. There's one scene where he's pretty much, after he does the big heroic thing, he comes back to camp, he gets washed, and it's very baptizy. Let's just say it's very baptizy.
Oh, boy.
And then at one point, he is lowered in a stretcher from the top to the bottom, and the way it's shot, it looks like he's ascending to heaven.
Oh, wow.
It's Mel Gibson, so it's Jesus-y.
Yeah.
It's pretty, again, it's about a devout Adventist, so it's going to be Jesus-y, no matter who directs it. But if Mel Gibson directs it, you know it's going to be more Jesus-y.
Super Jesus-y.
So, why don't we talk about the one movie?
The one movie that I saw that you haven't?
Yes, exactly.
Yes!
So tell me about
I can
Lion.
actually get a word in. Lion is amazing. It's, so I'll go through... I don't think it's really spoiling too much to go through the movie because it's based on a true story. If you really want, you can look up the story.
Yeah.
So, but the general gist of the story, without going into too much detail, is it's basically stars a little boy who's five, I think. Yeah. And by the way, the child actor for this movie, all of them.
Yeah.
But this one in particular, because he's so young, he's amazing.
Okay.
He is like legitimately a great actor, not a great child actor, a great actor.
Nice.
He's really it's really well done. So he lives in a very poor part of some unknown, that's part of the plot.
Yeah.
Unknown town, city in India.
Yep.
And so he and his brother just are trying to get by, right?
Yeah.
Their mother is a laborer, and ends up that he finally begs his brother, and his brother brings him along. His brother's like probably 14, 16, somewhere in there. Maybe even as low as 12. To come along, and they're gonna go ride the train, and his brother does, lifts bales, is pretty much all they explain it as.
Yeah.
But his brother does more manual labor during the night for money.
Yeah.
And this little 5-year-old says, I can lift tons, and he's lifting up his bike and all this sort of stuff to prove that he can lift. So they finally go to the train station, but he gets really tired and he can't go on, so his brother tells him, I'll have a nap here, I'm gonna go work, I'm gonna come back, and then we're gonna go home.
Yeah.
Because he can't go home by himself, and although it's not the safest place, I mean, it's different, you know, when you live in the poor areas of India, you're not gonna be as coddly to your children, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, he wakes up in the middle of the night, doesn't find his brother, crawls around, it gets a bit, it's unsheltered in the train station, so there's this train car just sitting there.
Yeah.
And he climbs in and falls asleep, and wakes up later to be miles and miles away. Ends up in Calcutta.
Yeah.
Which is pretty much across the country from where he started. So, long story short, ends up in Australia, grows up, and in the majority of the movie, barring the first part, which is great, it has a lot of really nice things, and I don't think it's spoiling the movie to know that the kid's not just going to die or starve because he's kind of the main character.
Yeah.
So he ends up in Australia with Nicole Kidman as his kind of mom, as his mom.
Yeah.
And the latter part of the movie is him trying to figure out, find his biological mother and his brother.
Yeah.
So it's a gorgeous movie. The shots are beautiful. Oops, something happened.
All right. Well, edit that in post.
We'll edit that in post, probably not.
Okay.
So the shots happen. The shots are all beautiful. Like there's some really artistic, like I don't mean like artsy, like beautiful shots that really have like some really good symbolism to them. The acting is great across the board.
Yeah, because it's the guy from Slumdog Millionaire.
Slumdog Millionaire plays the grown-up kid.
Yeah.
He's just, I don't know, the director shot the movie great. The script is fantastic.
Who was the director of that? Do you know?
Oh, I can't remember the director.
Okay, well, just continue.
I really highly recommend it. Okay. It's not overly long. It does not drag at all. Sometimes these, like, dramas, they kind of, especially if they're real life, they kind of drag.
Yeah.
But no, it doesn't drag at all. It feels fairly grounded, even though there's some fairly dramatic things that happen. I'm actually somewhat curious how much they,
they always change some things, but I wonder how much they did.
But no, I mean, overall, there's not much more I can say other than it's a beautiful, wonderfully done story.
All right. I'm just going to spend a minute or two before we end to talk about the movie that's probably going to win every Oscar, and that movie is La La Land.
La La Land. This is one I have to see?
You should see it. It's fun. It's a good movie.
It's a good movie? Okay.
Ryan Gosling and... Oh, come on. Who the other one? Emma Stone.
Yeah, I should probably see it. Hey, we all have our celebrity crushes, okay?
That's true. They are delightful. The songs are delightful. In my opinion, it drags a little bit in the middle section. The start is really good.
Like before the climax yet, right?
Yeah. Like the start is really adorable. The whole it follows the basic romantic comedy plot, right?
Yeah.
So at the beginning, they hate each other, and then they start to like each other, and that part's really adorably done. And then they fall in love. And then I'm like, okay, they're in love. Nothing is interesting to me is happening for a while. And then the ending sequence, which is the only part of the sequence that is spoilable, but the ending sequence is absolutely beautifully done. The movie as a whole feels a lot like Singing in the Rain.
Okay.
You can tell that the director wanted to make homages to. It's very much an old-timey style of musical.
Oh, cool.
It's set in modern day, but it's very old-timey.
Yeah, how everything's shot even and everything?
Yeah, it's very, and there's lots of dance sequences, it's more of a song and dance movie than a song movie. And, the main characters, Emma Stone plays a struggling actress, and Ryan Gosling plays a struggling jazz pianist who wants to open his own jazz club. He is probably the most hipster character to ever be in cinema because he likes pure jazz.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, but it's a good movie. With that, I think that ends our Broke Canadian newscast for today.
Yeah.
We will see you all next week.
We'll bring you tons more exciting stories from local news to national news.
To international news, to news that doesn't matter. So, everybody, goodbye and good night.